Imagine a senior partner at a prestigious law firm. He is giving a talk to a group of ambitious young students. He tells them about the relentless preparation, the discipline, the sacrifices he made that others were not willing to make. Everything he says is true. His career is real. His effort was genuine. What he does not mention, because it genuinely does not occur to him, is that his father was a partner at the same firm. That his first internship came through a family connection. That a financial safety net beneath his early career allowed him to take a poorly paid position for 2 years, one that most of his peers could not afford to accept. He is not lying. He is describing his experience accurately. The foundation beneath that experience is simply invisible to him. Foundations tend to be invisible when they have never cracked. The word meritocracy was invented in 1958 by a British sociologist and politician named Michael Young. He intended it as a warning. His book described a society that had finally managed to identify and reward talent perfectly, and in doing so had created a new elite, one far more entrenched than the old aristocracy, because it had convinced itself that everything it had was deserved. Young spent the rest of his life watching the word he invented be adopted enthusiastically by exactly the people he was warning against. The irony was stripped away. The warning was ignored, and meritocracy became a flattering name for a system that was, in his view, nothing of the sort. We know from the UBI pilots examined earlier in this series what happens when people receive a guaranteed income floor. They make better choices. Not lazier, but better ones. Choices that are more genuinely their own, unconstrained by the immediate terror of financial collapse. In Stockton, recipients moved into full-time employment at higher rates than the control group. They used the stability of a floor to take considered risks that people with financial cushions take as a matter of course. In Germany, 3 years of guaranteed income produced no reduction in working hours and measurable improvements in life satisfaction and purpose. What these studies are really measuring, without quite framing it this way, is the experience of having a foundation. The knowledge that a single failure will not be catastrophic. The capacity to make choices that reflect genuine preference rather than immediate necessity. This is exactly what inherited wealth provides for the children of the advantaged. A guaranteed income floor would provide a more modest version of it for everyone. Defenders of meritocracy tend to oppose guaranteed income on the grounds that it rewards people who have not earned it. But this objection only works if the current system already rewards people in proportion to what they have earned. And as we examined in the previous episode, the evidence makes that assumption very difficult to sustain. If a significant portion of the advantage held by high earners reflects the foundation they were born on rather than the choices they made, then the current system is already rewarding unearned advantages at scale. A guaranteed income floor does not introduce unearned reward into the system. It redistributes some of the unearned advantage that already flows through it, and in doing so makes the remaining rewards more genuinely reflective of merit. This is the argument that meritocracy's most committed defenders have the hardest time answering. Because it accepts their core value entirely, while turning their policy conclusion upside down. Switzerland offers its own version of this logic, and it has been running for decades. The apprenticeship system is widely celebrated precisely because it allows talent to surface across class lines. A young person without academic credentials can enter a structured pathway, earn while they learn, and reach a middle or upper income position without passing through the university bottleneck that in other countries functions as a class filter. The evidence shows it works. Research using hundreds of thousands of administrative observations found that Switzerland's income mobility is higher than both the United States and the Nordic countries, partly because of this system. A guaranteed income floor extends the same logic. The apprenticeship system reduces the influence of birth circumstance on education outcomes. A floor reduces the influence of birth circumstance on economic choices. They are the same intervention, applied at different points in a person's life. There is a piece of research that makes the human cost of the current system very concrete. Economists at the Equality of Opportunity Project studied over 1 million inventors in the United States. They found that children from the wealthiest families are 10 times more likely to become inventors than children from below median income families, despite no measurable difference in early mathematical ability. Low-income students scoring at the very top of third-grade math tests are no more likely to become inventors than affluent students who scored below average. Same ability, completely different trajectories. The researchers called these people lost Einsteins. People who had the talent to contribute something significant, but never had the foundation to become what they might have been. A flaw alone is not the complete answer. Honesty requires acknowledging that. Research from EPF Lausanne and ETH Zurich shows that wealth concentration in Switzerland has been accelerating. The top 1% now hold a significantly larger share of taxable wealth than they did 2 decades ago, and the trajectory is continuing upward. A guaranteed income floor, operating alongside accelerating wealth concentration at the top, narrows the gap only partially. The full argument for genuine meritocracy requires not just a floor but a ceiling discussion. Inheritance, capital gains treatment, and the intergenerational transfer of concentrated advantage are the mechanisms by which birth luck perpetuates itself most powerfully across generations. The fiscal and meritocracy arguments converge on the same policy conclusion from entirely different directions. Here is the thing that is worth naming plainly. The people most invested in the meritocracy narrative are almost by definition the people whose outcomes it flatters. They are also the people with the most institutional power to shape policy. And the argument that a guaranteed income floor would make meritocracy more real rather than less requires those people to support a policy that transfers resources away from them in the short term. History offers very few examples of powerful groups voluntarily accepting that kind of transfer in exchange for a more legitimate system. But history also shows what happens when they refuse for too long. The AI displacement examined in the first episode of this series is coming regardless of policy choices. The question is whether it arrives with a functioning floor beneath it, or without one. A society entering a period of large-scale labor disruption without a guaranteed income floor is not defending meritocracy. It is gambling with the social stability that makes any kind of ordered economic life possible at all. That is not a gamble even the most committed meritocrat should be willing to take. Next week we turn to the tax architecture that sits beneath all of this. The system we use to fund public life was designed for a world where human labor was the primary source of productivity. That world is ending. When AI replaces human labor at scale, taxing only wages while leaving AI output untouched is not a neutral policy choice. It is an accidental subsidy for displacement, and it is already operating at scale right now. Subscribe to Future Work Society for weekly analysis on AI, automation, and the future of the social contract. And if this episode made you think differently about anything, share it with someone who needs to hear it.